Good evening. Welcome to the Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, Thursday, October 17th, 2019. I'm going to take care of a bit of housekeeping up front in a moment, but before I do, the meeting is being recorded live. Is anyone in the audience? Any participants recording also? Seeing none, hearing none. I'm going to ask everyone that's here if we have a, Caleb, do we have a signature sheet for participants this evening?
Yes, we do.
So if we could make that available to the audience. And while we're doing that, just a point of administrative housekeeping. So we have one full-time board member that's absent this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and ask the board to bring forward one of our alternates. So Mr. Jones, without objection, we'll have Mr. Jones step in as a voting member this evening so that we can have a full quorum. While that's being circulated, so I'll go ahead and start. So we have 4 hearings this evening before us. So we have a 7 o'clock applicant, Serato Signs LLC for JRQ Investments, LLC requesting a special permit under section 7.6.7, the Auburn zoning bylaws for the installation of an electronic messaging center, sign for property located at 109 to 111 Washington Street, Auburn, Mass., map 27, parcel 25. Can I have a motion to open the hearing? Motion to open?
Second.
All those in favor? So we're open? Thank you. So is the applicant present? So if you could approach the lectern, sir, state your name, and give us an opportunity to hear what your brief is intending to do.
My name's Andrew Serato, owner of Serato Signs out of Worcester, Mass. I'm here representing Quill Services. They recently purchased a property that you mentioned, and there's currently a pylon sign on site, and they do want to remove the sign that's there, put their sign on top that says Quill Services, and take advantage of the bottom portion of the sign to put an electronic message center up there. They're going to abide by the Auburn town bylaws on the restrictions of time to hold, not have any flashing messages, but be able to advertise the different specials and the different services that they offer.
Anything additional you'd like to offer? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to board members to ask some questions. And I'm going to go ahead and start to my far left. And even though not a voting board member, I'm going to ruin your last name, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions, so I'm not even going to pronounce it.
It's Bush.
Bush, thank you. All right. No worries, because what I wanted to do was get all the vowels in there, and I knew I was going to ruin it.
Yeah.
But Ms. Bush, if you could ask the applicant some questions if you have any.
So with the sign is lit up, correct?
Correct.
What hours would the sign be lit up? Would it be?
I believe he'll have the sign going on in the morning around 8 o'clock and have it turn off at 9 o'clock at night.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
So I looked at your presentation. I was looking at whether or not it complies with 7.6.7.9. No electronic message center shall be located within 200 feet of any residence. So it seems that it is within 200 feet of residences. Is that correct?
I don't believe that it is.
Is it residential zoning?
I don't know.
If you're referring to the mobile home park.
Sir, if you're going to contribute, if you could go to the lectern, please, state your name for the record. We want to make sure that everybody home gets a chance to hear the entire hearing.
James Quayle, Quayle Services. So if you're referring to the mobile home park,
Yes.
that's not zoned residential.
Okay. But it says any residence rather than anything zoned residential. So what are the hours that the sign will be lit?
8 to 9?
8 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
Yep.
That was really my only question.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Roach?
I guess just in the interest of the fact that not everybody has in front of them what we have, can you just talk to me a little bit about the dimensions? I mean, I know I have it, but the people at home don't have it. So if from the drawing that we can see the top of the sign that says Quail Services, how big square footage?
The top of the sign that says Quail Services is 30 inches tall by 10 feet wide, and the message center portion of the sign is 4 feet tall by 7 feet wide. The overall size is 10 feet by 7, which is 70 square feet.
Okay. I do not have any other questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Chacolo?
I hope it's me that's confused. 767 refers to landscaping.
That was the number that I was
Our
given.
bylaw, 767.
If I may, through the chair, 767 is the electronic message center bylaw.
Caleb, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Section 7.6.7 is the electronic message center bylaw.
Okay,
Chacolo, if I can refer to you, I think you have the October 2018, correct?
Correct.
So if you want to flip to page 70, 767, mid-page.
There are two 767s, and one of them is landscaping.
page 70 is
71.
931.
So the
You're working on a
767 and
different-
767 are sequential.
So you're working on a different version, I believe, then?
Yeah, it's,
So for reference, I have 767 as an electronic messaging center.
okay. Yeah, there are two. Okay. The current pylon sign that is there shows multiple businesses advertised on it. Where are those going?
They're totally gone. Two of the mass mobility vans is gone, which is a section below it that says accessible vans. J and Phillips are not going to have a sign on the road. They're happy with just the sign that they have in the front of their building.
Okay. So the two signs that I see pictured here,
Yes,
those are going to be what you're replacing the pylon sign with?
that's correct. That's what's currently there. The J and Phillips, and the second picture you showed me is what's going to be
And
replacing what's there.
which part of that sign is going to be an electronic messaging?
The section below the Quail Services, section below the Burgundy section.
The top one in the picture, then?
No, the bottom one.
And the dimensions of that?
4 foot by 7 foot.
Well, I think we're about a little bit out of size requirements. Four foot by,
4 foot by 7 foot, 28 square feet.
Caleb, being that it's that pylon sign, is it going to be considered a freestanding sign?
So if you go through the chair, if you go through to the table on 761 on page 69,
Yeah?
electronic message center is allowed to be 25% of the wall sign area, which is 120 square feet. So he would be permitted to have the electronic message center be 25% of that 120 square foot maximum, if
Okay,
that makes sense.
And so, are you considering this a freestanding or a monument?
I'm considering an electronic message center.
All right, okay. That's all I have for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President?
No question.
So, the question was asked earlier, Mr. Jones, on the zoning district, it's in HB. And I've taken a look at measurements based on the 25%, so I think that we're good there. As far as the sign that's there now, it's coming down, correct?
Correct.
So it's going to be completely reconstructed?
Correct.
And are there going to be multiple, I think this was asked earlier, but I apologize, I didn't listen thoroughly. Is there going to be multiple businesses that are represented on that sign?
No.
So it's just a single business at this point?
Correct.
And you're not going to land any larger than 28 square feet?
I'm sorry.
You're not going to land any larger than what was described, 28 square feet?
Correct. For the LED portion of the sign, correct.
Which is, you're just asking for the relief on the electronic portion, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the special permit, excuse me. Okay. The Chair doesn't have any additional questions at this time. Do we have any abutters for this applicant? Not seeing any? I'm going to go back through the board again and see if there are any additional questions or concerns.
No additional questions.
No.
No, and he mentioned earlier that they would comply with the other requirements, like it can't flash, there's standards on how quickly the messages can change, as long as those things are complied with.
That's correct.
I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I don't have any other questions. You have anything else to add, gentlemen? Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close. If I can have a motion to close the open hearing.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have before us the applicant. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to grant.
I'll second.
Any conditions other than standard?
Nothing other than standard.
Okay. Motion and second. Mr. Cole?
Affirm.
Ms. Jones?
All support.
Okay, and the chair votes aye, so it's unanimous. Congratulations, so that's been approved. We'll approve with standard conditions that apply. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Wait for a second just to clear the room. Okay. Okay, so we have a second hearing, our 710 applicant, Impact Fitness, Andrew Lawton, requesting a special permit under section 6.2.3 for relief from parking regulations for the property located at 314 Washington Street, Auburn, Mass., map 42, parcel 9. Can I have a motion open here? Motion open.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is the applicant present?
I'm Vito Colonna. I'm with Cornerstone Engineering, civil engineer for the applicant. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here tonight, but we're here on their behalf. So basically, the site is at 314 Washington Street. It's the existing Impact Fitness facility. They've been open for about a year and a half, 2 years or so. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the site. It's right on the corner of Millbury Street. And right now there's a ongoing parking shortage on the site. Right now they have 71 spaces available, and there's a consistent need for more spaces on site. You know, people are parking up on the islands and, you know, on adjacent parcels and walking across. So they've asked us to look at options for expanding that parking. They have gone through numerous options in the past. I think we outlined them in the letter to the board. They looked at purchasing the abutting parcel at 100 Millbury Street at full price, which was declined. They looked at renting space across the street, but it was thought that crossing the roads would be unsafe for pedestrians at that location. They've looked at valet services. They actually had a valet service for a few months, but the cost was prohibitive. It was costing upwards of $7,000 a month to run that valet service. They looked at lifts, they looked at a parking garage, and just the cost of those were just prohibitive. So right now, the plan we have would increase the parking up to 100 spaces, so they'd get 29 additional spaces. But to do that, we would have to put the spaces within 10 feet of the property line, and that's what we're here for tonight before you, is to get relief from those requirements. So just to run through where those locations are, it's basically in the rear corner, through here. It's back a little bit. So this rear corner back here would have to expand the area out towards the property line. The abutting part to the back is all wooded. It's in old abandoned power lines. There's a wetland right in here, and this is a vacant piece. This is actually a piece for sale right now, a commercial piece for sale. And the second location that we need to expand within the 10 feet is along the frontage, right through here. We've proposed a one-way access along the front of the building right now with angled spaces, but we would be right up against the right-of-way line to Route 20. So those are the two areas, right here and in the back. The one in the back, we also have to go to conservation for because it is within, the buffer zone. It's actually within their 25-foot zone, and we went to them last week. There's a site walk scheduled, so they are considering that right now. And we're on for the next hearing. I think it was continued until next week or the week after. I forget which one. As far as the utilities go that go with this, the only really modification was just to increase the drainage system out there. So we just expanded that to accommodate this new pavement, control the peak rates. We still meet all of our treatment and recharge, all the stormwater management standards. It was just kind of detention that we needed extra on. Other than that, there's no real utility changes. Let's see. And the only other thing is, just to note, is that there really isn't much for vegetation removal out in here either. There's no tree clearing. Right now it's already all basically stabilized with riprap. Right now it's covered with stone. So it's basically changing that cover to pavement. All right. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Before I open it up to the board members to ask questions, you've already answered this in your brief, but I didn't hear it quite clearly, so I just wanted to reiterate it. So how many additional spaces are you looking to gain?
29.
29 in total?
Yep.
And if I could just ask one further question, if the board would indulge me. So two different locations on the lot that you're going to add these. How many up front that border Route 20 and how many in the back?
There's 15 up front, and then the remaining, 14, would be in the back.
Thank you. Anything additional before I open it up to board members for questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, so I think I'll start down at this end again, Ms. Bush.
Sure. The parking spaces in the front, how close to Route 20?
Yeah, so it varies. It is close. On the far end right here, we're only 1.5 feet off the line, and down this end, it's about 3 feet. So it's very close. It is up there. And we did go to the small car spaces, the compact, and the one-way to reduce all the access aisles up, so it's as small as we can get. And still fit it in there.
It's just open, there's no kind of curb or anything?
There's just curbing along this, there'll be curbing along this front edge, but we hadn't proposed anything else in that area.
I have no other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So it was just a year and a half or 2 years ago that the building was renovated and turned into this business?
Yeah, it was.
So why, do you know, if you know, why was this proposed 41% increase in parking not addressed at that time?
At that time, we fit as much as possible with complying with all the regulations at the time. And they thought that would be enough for the needs. I don't think they hoped it would expand as much as it did, but I don't think they thought it would grow as fast as it actually did. At the time, we fit as much as possible, but still trying to comply with those 10-foot setbacks.
I have a question. I think this might be best posed to Caleb, though. what is the point of the setback? Is it so that a sidewalk might be put in there at some point, or something else?
Through the chair, I believe the intent of the front setback is for safety, for sight distance, both for the cars. I believe it's a safety issue for sight distance, both for the cars coming down. If you have someone pulling into a spot right on the edge of the road while a car's coming, it could cause problems. Could also cause problems for a car pulling out,
Okay.
and if their sight distance is blocked.
All right, and so I have a follow-up for the engineer. So with snow removal, how would, like, street plowing impact parking?
Yeah, right now, we would be limited in these areas, you know, right along here and here. They may end up having to remove some from the site, but we still have some storage areas here in the back. And along there. We just would be limited, as you say, you know, right in this area here. We wouldn't want to plow it out into the Route 20 layout. You know, so they may end up having to remove some from the site, just because it is tight over there.
And I have one final question, that is, for clarity, so is it that there's, at least at one point, just 1.5 feet between the parking and the road?
Yeah, it's not within the pavement. There's still a shoulder. That's within the right-of-way. So there's 1.5 feet to the right-of-way, and then another about 15-ish, 12 to 15-ish feet to the pavement out here.
Okay.
Then the travel lane itself is another 5 feet, actually beyond that with the white line.
So if I were to find myself walking, how much space would I have?
Between the pavement, between the two edges of pavement, you'd have about 12 to 15 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Roach?
I guess being you're not the owner, do you know when their busiest times? I mean, I assume early morning and 5:30, like every other gym.
It's in the after-work rush, I think, is the busiest time.
The same time that Route 20 is also busy?
Yes, yep.
I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Colo?
I'm fine right now.
Discuss it.
So he tried to buy this commercial lot that's for sale on Mill Street,
Yes,
offered full price, and
that's what they had told us, yes.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of questions before I open it up to the abutters, and then anything that you'd like to respond to as far as some of the board comments. And so I'm extremely familiar with this property. Travel by it, if not every day, several times a day at times. And I saw the construction. So I want to compliment, there's been a considerable amount of work put into developing this property for this business, and it was quite impressive. We're also thankful that your business has done well. Their business has done well. I would tell you up front that I have no concerns about the proposal to increase backlot parking. I do have considerable concerns about the notion of adding any parking into that right-of-way zone in the front. And I would suspect by some of the nods and the looks at it, that others have the same concerns, but I'll let the other board members speak for themselves. I would assume that there's a considerable amount of construction based on the way the lot sits now for any additional parking in that back side, that there's going to be considerable construction that needs to take place to move that back because of the drop and the topography. And so that's going to be a considerable undertaking. So I can understand why you would split the two different locations, but I don't have any direct questions other than just to comment. I would have significant concerns if we're addressing any parking to be added up front. And I don't know if you want to respond to that in any way, or if any other board members have any additional questions along those lines.
We can see if anyone else has questions. We can respond at the end. If anyone's have the same type of questions, I can kind of go through it a little bit.
Okay, I mean, I'm not seeing anyone jump forward. You can go ahead and respond to that.
So it's basically, yes, and like you're right, in the back here, it is going to be a good amount of construction, just because it drops off and there's going to be a retaining wall in the back. And along the frontage also, there's also going to be some earthwork in that corner, you know, where the steps are that go up, right in the front. I don't know if you remember that, if you're looking at the building on the left-hand side. So right there's going to be a good amount of construction too, that would be required. The only thing is, we are limited, and this is really one of the only options they have on the site, is that back corner in this front area. And, you know, it's basically the only spot we can fit them, and we've tried all the, you know, reductions in the parking spaces, you know, the small cars, angles. We've used all those kind of, you know, not tricks, but, you know, those ways to reduce the size as much as we can. And this is kind of what we're left with right now.
I appreciate the dilemma because it's a good problem to have, right? You have growth in the business, but it does put you in a certain position. Ms. Rose?
Just a question through the chair, and I'm probably the farthest from an engineer in this room, but in the front spots, instead of them facing out to Route 20, I know you'd obviously get less, but could you turn them so those people would parallel by a few feet? I mean, I agree with the chair. I think the front is where you're going to find your problem with at least most of us.
Yep.
Could they do that?
Yeah, you could do, you know, parallel spaces, so then you could save,
You'd get less, of course, but
you'd save about 8 feet or so. You could pull that back about 8 feet from where it is now.
instead of 15 spots, what do you think
You'd
you could
probably get 7-ish, something like that, just eyeballing it.
Yeah, right.
Somewhere in that range. So then basically you'd have an access aisle and then just on the side, the single parallels. And the only reason we did just the layout with the parking out towards the street was just because of this intersection here. We wanted to try to have that intersection as far back as possible with this driveway right here. So we were trying to keep that as far away from Route 20 as possible. When cars coming in, there's more of a chance to, see each other, and, it's not as fast. But that is an option to do parallel spaces.
Any other comments from the board?
Caleb, do you know, has the police, fire, has anybody else seen this? Does anybody have any other?
Yes, I believe they did go to DCG with the proposed plan. I would say a lot of the same concerns were voiced. Snow storage up near Route 20 is an issue, and then also putting cars that close to the right-of-way is always a concern, safety. But I would also say that they have tried all their other options, and this is where they're at, so.
Thank you. Comments, Mr. Jones?
Mr. Chairman.
1 second, Mr. Cole, I'm sorry. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Has the business looked into that neighboring property that you said is for sale?
Yeah, that's the one they did offer on that, and they got turned down. And I believe what they've told me is they offered the full price, too, for it. So I'm not sure the backstory of what happened, why it wasn't accepted.
Okay.
But they were looking at it. We had done sketches for them showing, parking right here would have worked perfect. That would be the ideal thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Cole?
Just wondering if the addition of a substantial fence and/or landscaping across the front would make us feel any better about that 10-foot area?
Mr. Cole, if that's a question for the board?
It is. That's something I throw out to
If I may,
generate more questions, I
May,
guess.
through the chair, just to address that, we try to stay away from fences in the front because then it would cause more of a problem for the people trying to exit the property and not seeing what's coming down Route 20. If they're trying to exit the property and they're looking at a fence, it could be impactful to their sight distance. So we try to stay away from fences close to the roadside.
Sight-wise?
Yes.
Okay.
What about a guardrail?
That was one thing that was discussed.
Is a guardrail
Yeah.
considered the same as a fence, in your opinion?
No, a guardrail wouldn't
different.
create any sight distance issues, depending on
So-
grades, but it shouldn't.
A guardrail could fit in there. we could squeeze that in. It might give a little visual barrier between the two, but you do want to keep everything low, like you say.
Other questions from the board? Any additional comments from the applicant?
No.
Are there any abutters here that would like to speak? Not seeing any. I have a final comment, not to do any of the work for the applicant for them, but I mean, I can certainly validate that parking is a substantial issue at all times of the day. I know you had a thoughtful question earlier, but I've traversed this on several occasions, being around the corner, and it doesn't seem to discriminate between times of traffic, morning, afternoon. I would personally question whether or not 29 spaces is going to solve any of your problem, because the overflow is substantial. And I think you thoughtfully articulated how folks are creatively parking now.
Yes.
I mean, they're parking everywhere.
Yeah.
And it is creative at times.
Yes.
But I would even question, and this has no bearing, but I would even question if 29 spaces solves your problem with what I've seen in the volume and capacity that you're challenged with. Okay. I'm not seeing any abutters. Any additional comments from the applicant? Anything else you'd like to add, sir? Okay. All right. So we can go ahead and close the open hearing.
Make a motion to close this.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what we have before us is the application as it stands. Is there a motion? Is there a motion for further discussion?
Motion for further discussion. Hearing the word safety set off an alarm bell for me, so I'm extremely hesitant to vote for something that'll make an area less safe. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
I agree. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out of there. There already are, but to increase it by 29 is a lot.
I would also agree. My hesitance is that then people are going to continue to park across the street and run across Route 20. And is that any better?
No.
I don't love it, but I think that if you join there and you go there, you're going to find a place to park, and if you're going to run over from Shell or run over from the bank or run over from wherever.
Is there a crosswalk?
No.
No,
There's no crosswalk, there's no sidewalk,
no, there's nothing.
there's no easy egress for any pedestrians in that area. I mean, I profess my concerns, my challenges up front with the space in the front. I think it's a creative solution, and what I struggle with is turning away an applicant's creative approach because their business is growing, and so that's a challenge. Mr. Rose, I do appreciate what you're saying, but I think based on our jurisdiction, I mean, they need to figure this out based on the number of members that they have and their capacity. They were open for a certain capacity. They've obviously exceeded that. And so that, respectfully, I would submit that that's for them to manage. Any other comments?
I feel you have to go after that other lot.
Certainly something that they could independently try to do.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but
Yeah, but no, agree, but
more, I don't,
but-
that would be safe.
trying to, yeah, no, I agree.
It's a good use for that piece of land, too.
Any other comments? So do I have a motion on this?
If I may, through the chair,
Okay.
I don't want to tell the applicant what to do, but maybe he does have the option of requesting a continuance and going back to the drawing board and coming back with something that might be more pleasable to the board, whether it's parallel parking in those front spaces, or rather than all or nothing, he could go back to the drawing board and
Could certainly
talk
do
to
that.
his client and see if that's an
You can
option.
certainly do that. And so I would invite the applicant back up based on that suggestion, and we'll reopen so the applicant can speak.
Sure.
So you've heard the
Yes.
comments of the board, and I think you can probably gauge without a crystal ball which way this current application may lean with us.
Yes.
And so your comments on your options?
We can go back and look at doing the parallel spaces across the front to try to create more space up front, maybe provide a little landscape up in that area if that's
Okay.
something that we want.
Let me be clear on the options, just from my perspective, because I don't want to give the perception. That's not a palatable solution for me.
Okay.
Any parking up front is something that, quite frankly, I would object to.
Okay.
And so I would not want to give the impression
Yeah.
that that would be overwhelmingly successful. Not that we're hedging any way or
Yeah.
telling you what would or wouldn't be, but I just want to be courteous and being clear on what my objection would be based on these solutions. However,
Okay.
your option would be to withdraw without prejudice. And if you'd like to do that, we need to hear that.
Okay.
Or, excuse me, a continuance.
Right, yeah, would like to continue, that way we'll come back with another option for the board. Is any other board members have preference on that front or opinions on the front parking?
I would suggest that, I mean, we've offered a lot of comments.
Yes.
Before we open it up to the board again, I mean, respectfully, I don't want to cross the line on what we would try to do to design it for you.
Yep.
I would just want to be clear in a thoughtful way of what I don't like, so that you don't spin your wheels and think you're coming back with something that,
Yep.
that isn't palatable, and at least in my view.
Okay.
And I'm just one vote, one volunteer, so it's up to you to make those decisions.
All right,
All right?
sounds good.
But what I think we've heard is it will certainly grant a continuance.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll move forward from there.
All right.
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Caleb, do we need to make a motion and vote for a continuance?
Yes.
All right, so we'll take a motion.
Move to continue?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the chair votes aye. So unanimous so good luck to you, all right? And we wish you success in returning. Thank you. Just give it a minute to clear the room. We'll set up for our next applicant. This one. Okay, I won't delay it any further. We're already late for this, so I see Mr. Broder is setting up. So our next applicant is 715 applicant David Elkinson, trustee of EB Realty Trust, requesting a special permit under section 3.2.2.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow a two-family detached dwelling on property located at 6 Pioneer Lane, Auburn, Mass. Map 55, parcel 183. Can I have a motion to open this hearing?
Motion open?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we're open. So good evening, Mr. Broder.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you. Todd Broder from Fletcher Tilton, here representing the applicant EB Realty Trust. The application before you is for a special permit to construct a two-family detached dwelling at 6 Pioneer Lane. The applicant recently purchased the property within the last year or so and has been looking at options to develop the property. Came up with this detached two-family concept, submitted design plans with the application, which should be in front of you, which you will see provide for 2 units side by side with garages. They're 3-bedroom units, just under 1,800 square feet for each unit. The lot in question is appropriately sized for the two-family detached dwelling in accordance with the dimensional requirements, where 19,000 square feet are required for a structure like this, and the lot has 35,000 and change of square feet of land. Additionally, the frontage requirement's 100 feet. We meet that requirement, and the setbacks would be met if the buildings were constructed as shown on the plan. Excuse me. Pioneer Lane sits in an established neighborhood. It is a mix in this area of single and and there are other two-family detached dwellings that are similar that are immediately next door to this property. There's a string of, I believe, 5 in a row or so of these structures. So this would be kind of first in line, and then it would continue on as the two-family detached dwellings. It may revert back to single-family after that. I can't recall, but it is a mix in this area. It's an established neighborhood. It's got sidewalks on at least one side of the street. Very nice public layout for the road. Excuse me. So I went through within the brief that I submitted, I went through the criteria for the special permit, and there's specific criteria within Section 9.3.6 of the bylaw, which I also spent some time reviewing and addressing within the brief, things like the height of the structure being less than 25 feet, which we can comply with, and the various provisions that are within 9.3.6, which I'm happy to go through if those items are at all in question. But I would rely on the briefs as submitted, and be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and open it up to questions from the board.
I don't have any questions at this point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones?
I have none.
Ms. Roach?
Not right now.
Okay. Mr. Chacolo?
It appears that we have some abutters, so I'd like to hear from the abutters first.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chacolo. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, my only question would be, I'd like to hear from the abutters also, but do you know, are these going to be, are these just going to be sold, or are these going to be rented out by the owner?
I don't think they've made that decision yet, but I think their preference would likely be to sell as condos or separate units.
Mr. Roeder, I just have one question on the rendition that we currently have.
Sure.
Are these proposed designs or are these actuals?
Those are actuals.
So this is exactly what they intend to build?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Any additional comments before I open it up?
No, but I'm happy to answer questions that may come up.
Thank you. So are there abutters present that would like to speak on this, sir? Sir, if you could approach and we'll take it in systematic fashion. Sir, have you signed the form as being present this evening? Thank you very much. So if you could approach and state your name, sir, and add your comments.
Sure. My name is Christopher Broderick. I live at 4 Pioneer Lane, the abutting lot to here. My question has to do with setbacks. They've done some surveys of some stakes in the ground where the proposed building is going to go. And on one side, very adjacent to 4 Pioneer Lane, you'll notice that it's very, very close to the lot line. I measured it the other day. It looks like the stake that's marked is only 9 feet from the lot line. So what are those setbacks? And when you have 35,000 square feet, I'd like to hear a little bit more about why it's being built 9 feet from the lot line as opposed to being a little bit further setback.
All right, thank you very much. Given that those are very specific questions, Mr. Broder, if you wouldn't mind addressing those. I also viewed the property and saw the stakes that he's referring to. And so if you have that information, if you could give us just a summary or background of what those stakes represent.
I don't actually know what that stake is.
There are several on the property.
It may be demarking some other item on site, but in accordance with the site plan would be how the structure would be constructed. And it shows on the site plan that it's 26.7 feet to the front corner of the house, which would be the closest point to 4 Pioneer. So I'm not sure what that stake is, but I would submit to the board, as you know, I mean, the applicant would be bound by the plans that would be submitted and approved, and we do need to go to planning board as well for this process, and we would be utilizing this same plan. So this would be the designated location, and if it wasn't, they'd have to come back and seek an amendment to the permits if they were issued. So it should be 26.7 feet of setback. And Caleb may have it in front of him, but I'm sure the bylaw indicates a minimum, and I don't have it in front of me, but I could look it up if need be. It would certainly need to comply with that setback under any circumstances.
Through the chair, the side setback in the RA district would be 10 feet for a residence and 7 feet for a garage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So this would more than comply with the 10 feet.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Broder. Yes, sir. So same, if you could approach and state your name, sir, and your comment.
Lou Goslin, 7 Goulden Drive. My lot sits in the back of that. I don't have any problems with the building and where it's going. My concern is water drainage. Basically, from number 4, that pond and everything comes back down to to my lot. Right now, there's a lot of vegetation and some trees there to take care of all that. I want to make sure that's going to be staying there. so we don't have water problems later. When that land was initially cleared at first, a couple of months later, a tree came down, hit the fence, went into the neighbor's pool, so it definitely changed the landscape.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much for your comments. And not to put you on the spot, Mr. Broder, but we can collect a few comments. There was a question about drainage from this gentleman, but if you want to collect some of those, and then we can have you perhaps provide some comments if you wish at the end of that. Others that would like to speak on this hearing? Okay, so after...
I have one more comment.
Yes, sir.
My other comment, since you mentioned water drainage, there's a known issue with drainage on that. There's a conservation issue. I've been speaking there, and so did the previous owner of 4 Pioneer Lane. There is a drainage trench behind that property. It runs from Waterman Road behind through 4 Pioneer Lane into 6 Pioneer Lane into a drainage ditch. So I'd want to also make sure that that's not ever blocked, and that it's maintained through construction, and that it's also continuing on into the future owners or renters of that property as well, to make sure that that drainage just stays maintained.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So any additional comments that you want to share, Mr. Broder?
If I may, through the chair, I can address the last comment about the drainage
Certainly.
ditch. There's actually a document recorded, I believe, on the deed for both 6 and 4 Pioneer that they can't fill above a certain height where that drainage ditch is concerned. And that's something that the planning board will look at, so we're well aware of it. And
Okay, so that, Caleb, I would imagine that would carry forward through the construction and the inspections.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for addressing that. Mr. Broder?
Caleb answered the question.
Okay, very good. And
Thanks, Caleb.
Okay, no worries. Any additional comments?
No, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Not seeing any additional abutters for this property in this hearing. I'm going to reach back to the board to see if they have any additional questions for this applicant. Ms. Chicola?
Thank you. I have something that I'd like to bring Caleb in on, and that is there is no number here on the plan that shows how close it would be to an approximate sewer easement. Will that be a problem, the setback from that sewer easement?
no.
Thank you.
The application would be vetted through the sewer department, but if they're not putting the house on top of the sewer easement, they're not going to care. They just need to have access in case something happens.
Very good, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Ms. Chicola. Ms. Cussy?
No questions.
Ms. Roach?
No questions.
Mr. Jones?
No questions.
I only have one follow-up just to confirm. So we're looking at a two-family only, so no additional units on this lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and as described, a two-story.
I'm sorry?
As described, just a two-story. We're not going any higher.
Correct. It'll be built in accordance with the plans that are in front of you.
Understood. Okay, thank you. No additional questions from the board?
None.
Okay, I don't have any additional questions either, so I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion closed?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So is there a motion with the application in front of us?
I'll make a motion to grant.
Second?
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. Before I go around for final vote, any additional conditions? Considerations? Okay. Mr. Cussy? Grant. Mr.
Grant.
Jones? Okay.
Approve,
All
grant.
right, and the chair approves. So unanimously approved with the standard conditions, and I wish you good luck on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have one additional hearing, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but given that it's a similar applicant, Mr. Broder, are you representing as well?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. So I won't hold this. Do you need a moment to confer with this gentleman?
No, I was just getting his contact
All right,
information.
very good. We did close, and then we voted. But thank you for keeping us honest. No, absolutely. No, very good. And we're doing abysmal on running on time, so I'll just lean right into it, if I may. So we have a 720, applicant, David Elkinson, trustee of EB Realty and Trust, requesting a special permit under section 3.2 .2.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow a two-family detached dwelling on property located at 10 Stone Street, Auburn, Mass., map 57, parcel 18. I see the applicant is in fact ready. I'll take a motion to open the hearing.
Motion open?
Second.
All those in favor? Mr. Broder?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Todd Broder from Fletcher Tilton here on behalf of the applicant, EB Realty Trust. Same application really as I just spoke about, but I will go through the details for you. The application is for a special permit for a two-family detached dwelling at 10 Stone Street. Excuse me. The applicant did recently purchase this property, and I'm sure the neighbors can speak to it better than I, but the house and the garage on the property were in pretty rough shape. I've spoken to Caleb about the previous issues at the property, but according to the town, it was uninhabitable and kind of a real detriment to the neighborhood. The buildings have been recently demolished and the site kind of prepared for something, and this is the application that the property owner would like to pursue. So it is, as in front of you, the floor plans are the same as the last project we just spoke about, so 2 side-by-side units with garages and approximately 1,796 square feet of living space in each unit, 3 bedrooms in each unit. Again, the property has the required square footage, frontage, and dimensional setbacks that are required. Again, the brief that I supplied goes through the additional provisions of that section 9.6.1 as to height and those items, and it's really the same type of responses I just gave you 5 minutes ago. So I'll defer to the brief, and I'll certainly be glad to answer any questions that may come up, and certainly glad to respond to any concerns the neighbors might have.
Thank you very much. I can walk through, but I would imagine that we do have additional abutters, looks like, that would like to speak this evening. So are there any board members that would like to speak before the abutters?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
I have one question at the moment. So Oak Street, I haven't been to the location. Is that a paper street or a real street?
That's a paper street.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Cussy? No. Okay. Okay. All right. So what I think we'd like to do is move right to, are there abutters that would like to speak this evening? If you could approach, sir, and state your name for the record.
Wayne Bloomquist, 13 Stone Street. Excuse me. As you can see, we have concerns of the neighborhood. We had a house that ended up becoming abandoned. We have a two-family next door to us that is an absentee owner. So, I mean, we get concerned about the neighborhood. So this is why we're here. We want to know what's going to be built there, what's going on. When you say duplex or detached building, we want to know what this is about. So here we are.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments. Any specific questions about the build of the property?
Would we be able to see a plan?
Sure.
Certainly. Okay. Thank you. Are there any additional members in the audience that would like to speak?
Hi, Paula Marble, 8 Stone Street, so the property to the right. I'm just wondering, in regards to drainage too from that house, because that kind of is a hill in some ways, if there's going to be any kind of preparation for land, because it looks like it's very much dug up, per se. So are there going to be filling as well as maybe causing an elevation that could possibly cause more drainage towards my house? I mean, that was one of my questions.
Sure. Are there
I guess
additional questions?
The other one is the property going to be more kind of, because I haven't seen plans, so I don't know where exactly the property is standing in regards to the land.
I have an extra copy if it's needed.
Okay, so I have a lot of woods on the side of this area. So how far away is that? There's like a small line right here. I just don't know the measurement between, I believe it's at like a, is that like a deck or? Sure. Sure, yeah, no, yeah, just a little bit more clarification. Where it's going and what's happening.
Thank you, Ms. Furter.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. To address the question of elevation change and whatnot, this will end up being a walkout based on the elevation. So they're not going to do a lot of earthwork to try to make it flat and then create, an abysmal drop-off or something like that. This sets up as a walkout, which I think the contours makes more sense when you do it that way. So there won't be a lot of shifting of land. Vegetation, I spoke with the developers today at length, and I'm told that the site is really prepared for building at this point, so I think that the town might have even taken down a tree or two, probably in the frontage area, and I'm told that it's ready for, for the work to happen. So if there's vegetation there today, it would stay. And the question I think you had, I believe that's a side staircase. It's not proposed to be a large structure. She was pointing to the closest point on that easterly side of the property, which shows at 15.3 feet of distance. That's an exit off the side of the house.
Miss, I'm sorry, but if you have additional questions, if you could approach the lectern, please.
Just in regards to the vegetation area being so close, there is a huge tree that is on their property that, if they're building that close, I'm wondering why that tree wasn't taken out if they took out like a lot of them. Which is like, it seems like it's going to be right smack in the middle of this point towards the front of the street.
Sure. Mr. Broder.
I did not ask them tree by tree, that sort of thing, but I was told that they did not want to disrupt the vegetation any further than they needed to, and I was told that it's really fairly well prepared for the site construction. I'd imagine if they had a tree company on site, they were taking down trees, they would have taken down something that impeded the construction site or the building itself. So that's, I guess, about the best I can do to answer that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Broder. Are there additional questions from the abutters?
I'm Tom Wall. I live across the street at 9 Stone Street. I guess my thoughts on it are that this neighborhood, unlike the prior one that was discussed that has several of these already, this is a neighborhood of primarily single-family homes. All of us in the neighborhood take a lot of pride in our homes and go to great lengths to try to keep our properties kept up well. For years, decades, in this neighborhood, there has been one thing that doesn't look like all the rest, and that's been this property. It's been an eyesore for decades, and now that this is finally being taken care of and there's an opportunity to restore the neighborhood, the proposal is to replace it with something that is going to now for more decades be unlike all the rest. I can think of only one reason why the builder would want to do that, and that's greed. They can make more money on 2 homes than they can on 1. That builder doesn't have to live there and the consequences that the rest of us will have to for decades to come. So I just want to put out there that I'll just be straight. I don't want a duplex across from me. I've had to look at this eyesore for decades. I don't want to have to look at this now for decades. And God forbid it becomes renters who don't want to keep up the land and the property like the rest of us want to do.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments from any of the other butters that would like to speak? Not hearing anyone motion. Last chance. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Broder, any additional comments that you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go through the board one more time. Any questions from the board on this application?
I just have one. I'm pretty sure it was already asked and slightly answered, but at this time, the owner is not saying he's going to sell them, but he's also not saying he's going to keep them.
Correct. It's not trying to be mischievous. It's just not
Doesn't know.
a clear plan yet at this point. There was a lot of work that went into deciding whether there was any ability to save the structure or not, of course, and that didn't seem to be a very good option. So the demolition seemed like the best option, and at this point, they developed a nice plan, I think, for the two-family, the side-by-side units, making, a pretty significant investment in the property between the acquisition, demolition, and the construction of these new units. So, certainly not something that an owner's going to do and then walk away from. So even if it was rented, I imagine they'd keep a pretty tight eye on it. Brand new construction. That only makes sense.
Thank you. Ms. Hill?
I have no other questions.
Mr. Jones?
None?
No questions.
Okay. Ms. Chacolo?
I'm satisfied.
Ms. Cussy?
No, they are a very nice-looking property. It's not like they're putting some junk in there, with the garages and everything. It's a nice-looking property, and it is their right to build it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Broder, just one quick follow-up. I know that you had already spoken to this on some of the site work that's already been done. I did view the property, albeit today, and I know that there was a considerable amount of tree work done. Looks like there's more to do, at least just to clear out the lot of the significantly large limbs down and trunks that are down. You may not know the answer to this, but do you know if there's any additional cutting that's planned? And you partially addressed this already, but I just wanted to put it out there to see if you knew of any other vegetation removal, any other tree work that's being planned with this site.
Not to my knowledge, and I did ask the applicant today about that, and we spoke about the trees, particularly in the front and on the sides. I wasn't aware that there were any additional trees in the way of construction or of the driveway or site improvements.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is, would you say you had made the comment thoughtfully that it was ready for construction? I would submit from what I saw today, there's they need to remove what's there before they start putting footings in.
Sure. I guess
But it may just be clean out, but not additional cutting, I don't know.
Right. I guess what I meant by that was they don't need to go in and clear cut the lot and, move a lot of dirt around in order to get to the point of, starting a foundation.
And I would confirm that from what I saw today. The back of the lot drops off a fair amount, and so when you'd said it was being positioned, I would assume that frontage was being positioned much closer than the back of the lot, because as the topography drops off, if it's a walkout design, then that house is going to be more to the front of the lot than the back, correct?
That's correct, and it does show on the site plan, it's around 45 feet off of Stone Street, whereas it's 200 plus feet off of the rear of the property.
Okay, all right, thank you for that very much. I don't have any additional questions. Did you have a question, Mr. Jones?
I don't.
Okay. All right, not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Broder.
Thank you.
So I'll take a motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
Motion to close public.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So are there any additional discussion, or is there a motion for this application?
Motion to grant?
Second.
So it's been made in second. Any discussion or special conditions? Not seeing any. Mr. Cussy? Grant. Okay. Ms. Roche?
I would grant.
Okay. And the chair grants as well. And so with standard conditions, it's been approved unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, good luck with the build. Thank you very much, Mr. Broder. That's our final applicant for this evening. And so, from a matter of housekeeping items, we don't have any signatures or decisions. Do we have minutes for this evening?
Not tonight.
And we don't have minutes for this evening. Next meeting is November 21st. I don't think of any other business. Caleb, any other business this evening?
Should be good to go, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Just gave it to you.
Thank you.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.